Shalom, Avraham Shira and R Israel with our daily Rabbi Nachman class, Torah 80. And we're heading into the last couple paragraphs. And yesterday we learned this great idea. You want to give God pleasure? Okay, you could give us 1,000 answers, right? What gives God pleasure? Rabbi Nachman says right here an amazing thing that you will never think that it gives God pleasure. And he tells us what it is. It's when our thoughts are connected to our speech. That when our mind is thinking of what we're saying and our speech is informed by our speech, we're creating a yichud, a unification between two different levels in heaven. The level of mind, thought, which in Kabbalah is called the world of Atzilut, and speech, which is the level of Asiya, the world of action. So actually, when we think of what we're speaking, when we're speaking it, and we're informing our speech with real thought, you're unifying the spiritual and the physical plane, and that gives God tremendous pleasure. Because when you're an eternal, infinite being, it's no fun just to show up at the party and overrun the show. No, God's pleasure is to appear in the vessels of our mind, in the vessels of our speech, of course, in the vessels of our heart. We're creating a space, not that we want him there, of course we do. And we need him there, well, most of the time that's true too. But the real koach, the real power and understanding is that when he invests himself into the vessels, he gets the pleasure of being present in our lives. You know, when God gets the pleasure of being in our lives, isn't he happy he created us? Could we ask for more? You know, it's like, if you're a parent, you understand, I'm sure intimately, how often do your children come, Dad, what do you think? Dad, what's the best way to go here? Dad, what's your opinion on this matter? How often do kids do that nowadays? I hate to guess what the statistics are on that question. But as a parent, you have to, of course, let your child operate and do what he does within boundaries. But how often do they really want to hear from us? How often do our kids really want to take our opinion into account? There's so much, information out there. The kid can dial in on ChatGPT. He's going to know everything in the world in 30 seconds. What does he need us for? That's a different AI problem we'll talk about some other time. But this particular point about giving God pleasure, the unifying thought and speech, will make your speech something else altogether. It makes your speech holy. When it makes your speech holy, he tells us you are actually causing peace between the upper world and the lower world. You're bringing down the intellectual into the physical plane, because speech is a physical thing. It's a vibration of air moving through our speech apparatus, and that brings the highest level into the lowest level. And that shalom is an aspect of the joining of the opposites we learned about also, the powers of expansion and contraction, which are chasadim, the light that opens the heart, contraction, the light that makes the heart close and kind of squint sideways and wonder if I should be listening to this person, right? Because that is this unification of the mind and the wisdom. And this is happening in the chasadim and through the speech. And so you're bringing wisdom into your speech. But without the consciousness of doing it, you're kind of like relying on a roll. You know, if you're in the zone, you're in the zone. That there's a unification taking place because you've done the hard work. Whether you're, shooting free throws or giving a talk to 1,000 people, there's being in the zone is always a reality. And that zone is when we unify these levels. But he's telling us we can cause it and give God pleasure by doing so consciously, as opposed to just doing the homework and then hoping for the best. And this idea of the constriction powers, well, we need those. And Yosef had them both. We learned that as well last time. And therefore it said about Yosef, Yarim ish et yado ve'et raglav. Right? Without your opinion, Yosef, no man in Egypt will lift his hand or lift his foot. So, that's interesting. Well, we understand he's the second in command of the country, and Pharaoh is he's off, checking out the occult, not paying attention to the operation of state, and Yosef is the man for the job. But on the exoteric level, the idea is that Yosef is the mind union that causes even us to lift our hands and lift our feet, so that, before you pick up the car keys, you think about what you're doing. And before you go out to the garden and plant a tree, maybe it's time to do something else for somebody else. We don't know. But by thinking about it, we automatically create a vessel to receive higher guidance and wisdom. Ki Yosef hu kalun v'chinat yadin v'raglayim. And Yosef is the union of the hands and the feet as well. These two powers that get us going in this world. We want them working together. We want them integrated. And when you have an integrated soul, everything's working together. It's another experience of yourself. And there are many things we could say about that. It's not just being in the zone. It's having total consciousness of self. And we work on this in psychology as well, of self in context. You are who you are, but everywhere you go, you're somebody different as well. When you're in a classroom, you're either a student or a teacher. When you're at school, or maybe in the administration department, you got to report to the principal. Or, when you go home, your father or your mother, your brother or your sister. And every place you go, you take on different roles. And that's self in context. But when we have consciousness of it by bringing mind into speech, then all of a sudden we get kind of like our inner guidance system gets more refined. The hands are the aspect of wisdom, which is, we learned, it's also the idea of Kodesh, holiness, the first thing, the first chosen thing, the thing we put aside, which is our thought. Se'udehem Kodesh, lift up your hands in holiness. That's why we lift our hands when we wash our hands as Jews, because we're not just washing our hands, we're lifting our hands to a higher level of operation. It's no longer feed me, feed me. It's lift up my hands to praise the creator of the food, to lift up my hands to understand that they are conduits of power from a higher level to a lower level. And the level that we're on most of the time, the physical plane, will hide the higher levels. And the Rebbe goes on to tell us, Chodesh, lift up your hands in holiness, and speech is the idea of, we've learned this before too, of your legs. Because what do your legs do? They take you out in the world. They help you travel around. And your speech is traveling from your mouth into the world. Just like your feet carry your body, your speech carries your mind into the world. Right now, as I'm sitting here looking at this little camera, all of you are out there wherever you are, my speech is traveling to you. And that is this idea of the extension of self into the world, and that is the idea of the hands and the feet. Now, he goes on to tell us this speech. We need to, but to accomplish all of this, we still have to serve Hashem with self-sacrifice. But what's the self-sacrifice really? It's not as bad as it sounds. It hurts sometimes, but self-sacrifice is when we're actually sacrificing our lower self for our higher divine self. In other words, my desire to eat something that's not good for me is definitely my lower self. And when I stop and say, no, I'm not going to eat that, I'm going to eat something holy, something healthy, which holy and healthy to me are very close together. When you do that shift, you're shifting self. You're going to your higher operating system. And that's the idea of the nefesh. Ubeparat, he tells us, b'shat tefillah, especially when it comes to prayer. Let's say you don't want to pray. That is the highest time to pray. Because the minute you start praying, you're transferring from the lower to the higher self. Because the essential, complete prayer is when you have self-sacrifice in prayer. Lift up your hands in holiness to Hashem. When you're really in prayer, you never notice how your hands just gotta go up to God. There's that thing. It's not a touchdown. It's God help, right? That urge of the hands to go up is an elevation of soul power again. And remember, the hands are the only part of the body that can go way above the head, which is the operating system, right? All the way down below to the knees. And so the hands are like an elevator of energy between the higher and the lower. And they're mediators between that energy as well. So praying with self-sacrifice actually exchanges self. And we get the higher self operating in the prayer. God's not going to answer you. Of course He is. And He has intention. I want to give up this lower soul, God, to you to operate with your higher soul. And because He tells us certainly that every Jew has this level of self-sacrifice for Hashem. Whether he's how religious or not is not the issue. The issue is the willingness to sacrifice that moment, that time, that space, that energy, those words for something greater. It gives God tremendous joy because we're doing His work here. Even the lightest person, people who are not really involved in Avodat Hashem too much. And we've already seen, He tells us down here, in the earlier generations, He said how many people that were not learned, were not serious people in their service, and they were low on the level of their moral values even. They would still sacrifice themselves to be Jews, and they will not give up. They would rather die than tell the priest that I'll become a Catholic, which happened more than once to a lot of people. Doesn't happen so much today because I guess the priests have other things to do. But this whole idea of converting Jews is just an insanity that we're not going to go there. But you can understand that a simple person who's not even learned, doesn't even know why he's doing it, but you put a gun to his head, he said, be Catholic or die. He'll say, okay, I'll die. I'll go back to God. I'll start over. No problem. And he's going to give up his mind and his body. Ashrei lehem, and fortunate are they that have that ultimate test, which becomes an ultimate gift, because you get a new soul at a whole another level when you give your life to Hashem that way. And immediately when a person wants to give his soul for this self-sacrifice, it creates this upper peace, this peace between the upper and the lower. And this is the idea of Yosef, and that gives us that holy speech, which is the thing that attaches the thought to the mouth, the mind to the mouth, as we said before. And that draws the kedusha down. So you see, it's how much you learn is important, but it's how much you do and learn in self-sacrifice. When you don't want to do it and you do it, and when you're pressed to serve Hashem and to learn something or to teach somebody something or to pray a prayer when you're not really in that mode, that kedusha is going to come down through your speech because of that self-sacrifice, because of the whole system that we've been describing here. This, by having speech with peace, see, you can't really connect your mind and your mouth if you're not in personal peace, because your mind's running one way and your mouth is running another. So we have to have that inner peace to create the beginning of that channel. And this is the idea of God will build Jerusalem. Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is this idea of speech, which is the mental power. To merit. It's not a simple thing. It's not just an easy thing you can pick up at the dime store to connect your thought to your speech, to really pay attention. Wow, Avram, are you talking too fast right now? Am I talking too loud? Are people able to understand? I ask myself those questions in this capacity right here, and every one of us has those capacities where we need to question and check. Am I accomplishing my mission right now, or maybe I should just be quiet? Maybe that'll help more. Depends on the mission. This is the idea of building Jerusalem, that the mochin bonim adibor, that your mental power build your speech, that they're feeding it. You might not feel it, you might not see it, but it's happening. Ask any neurologist, he'll tell you how the brain is running the mouth. The idea of the Jews that were pushed off, the ones that were pushed off the furthest. In all the different terrible situations in Jewish history, they will come back. It's when the people that are pushed off come back. That's the great glory for Hashem. And that's when the people give their lives by being out there in the exile and doing what they have to do. Because all those people are pushed far from the Kedusha of Israel. When they're being told to try to convert them to something else than Judaism, immediately their spark is aroused. In Mosrim Nafsham al Kiddush Hashem, they're willing to sacrifice everything for Hashem. And by doing that, by that moment of self-sacrifice, all that energy is released into the world of the self-sacrifice for Hashem, and to bring people back. And they come back and they don't even know why they're coming back. They don't even know why they're thinking about it, why they care suddenly that they're Jewish, and there must be something to this story besides all the horrible stories, right? That the pushed away of the Jews are returned. Then we rebuild Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the symbol of the whole system working, from higher to lower, from heaven to earth, from spiritual to physical. Kiddush Hashem hu b'chinat shalom. And the idea again, making peace is the self-sacrifice that it takes to make the peace. And there gives us the power to attach speech and thought. And this is God will build Jerusalem. He'll build the inner Jerusalem in each and every Jew. And that inner Jerusalem is when your whole system is integrated between your thoughts and your heart and your speech and your hands and your feet. It's all working together, and you are in the groove. So I bless you all to have a taste of that moment, that holiness when it's flowing through you, and you'll say, now that's what I'm after. That's what I'm waiting to hear, because that's what Rabbi Nachman came to teach us. God bless you all. We're going to continue. We have one more paragraph. We'll do this, tomorrow, tonight. I don't know. Time is relevant in these times, right? God bless you all. Have a great day. We'll see you on all the outlets. Tonight I'll be on webyeshiva.org. All call too.